Vincent van Gogh is a genius, but these are two of the worst paintings of sunflowers ever. These are beautiful sunflowers by Monet, Klimt, and Tissot, but Vincent's are simply grotesque. Why would he break three major rules of painting to create disquieting sunflowers to put on the wall of his friend's bedroom in his own house? This is the story of how Vincent, a bipolar genius, created the most beloved sunflowers in the history of art, how they hide a disturbed mind and portend disaster for him and his friend Gauguin. Here we have a bright, cheery yellow painting. It jumps off the wall in the National Gallery in London. It was a lovely painting for his artist friend Paul Gauguin, who was on his way to Arles from Paris to live and paint with Vincent. It all seems a happy story, but as we peel back the layers, we start to see, right from the beginning, the makings of a disaster. Vincent's mental state was unbalanced throughout his life, and while he was excited at the prospect of Gauguin coming to live with him in Arles, he must have been aware that he could fall back into depression at any time. Vincent knew that he was unwanted in Paris, as he embarrassed his brother Theo's polite society friends, and he must have known that Gauguin would react similarly. For Gauguin's part, he was coerced into going to Arles by Theo, who wanted him to accompany Vincent, as he knew he was lonely and depressed and that no other artist would join him. It was a recipe for an explosion of artistic genius on canvas and disastrous relationships. To understand how unique Vincent's sunflowers are, let's look at sunflowers painted before, during, and after Vincent's time. We have Van Dyck, Monet, Klimt, and Tissot as examples. They are expertly painted sunflowers. They are in full bloom and represent optimism. We tend to think of this as a permanent state. However, sunflowers only stay in bloom for 3 weeks. So when artists paint them this way, they represent optimism, life, and joy of a particular moment in the life cycle. But when we place Van Gogh's sunflowers beside them, I'm not sure that we can use the same words. So what is going on here? He's certainly breaking a number of rules of painting. So yes, in a way, the other masters have painted better sunflowers. But why did Vincent break the rules to create these unique sunflowers? And why do they lead millions of people from all over the world to travel to admire his sunflowers? To give context, representing people, emotions, and events like life and death through emblems like flowers is a Dutch tradition. And there was a tradition of self-portraiture that examined the painter in Holland. So, thinking of these flowers as indicative of Vincent's mental troubles would fit in with this tradition. The first clue to this painting is in the background. Before the summer of 1888, Vincent had painted studies of sunflowers and then 2 versions in vases. This third version was painted in preparation for Gauguin's arrival. The background is blue and the petals are yellow. The sunflowers are in full bloom, save for 1 or 2 without petals. And the color contrast of blue and yellow follows the famous Charles Blanc's color wheel theory of opposites. Opposing colors strengthen each other. That is, the yellow looks more yellow alongside blue. However, in the 4th version, the background is suddenly bright yellow. This makes the canvas almost luminescent. It almost glows. This, however, breaks the rules of opposing colors and causes the petal color, yellow, to lose its strength. The petals blend into the background rather than standing out, and thus they lose their significance and importance. This is an interesting point because they are the symbols of life in bloom. If it were not for the petalist heads in dark yellow, the canvas could almost be purely bright yellow and green. Again, this is a far cry from the other masters, and it lays the background for an exposé of Vincent's mental state, which Gauguin ran into upon arriving at the Yellow House. At first, things went well. Both artists produced a number of stunning canvases based on the people and nature around Arles. However, all was not well, and if we look back to the sunflowers, there are clues as to why. In the 4th version, the sunflowers suddenly burst into a flurry of activity. They move left, right, up, down, and front to back. They are seemingly searching. There's a kind of mania in them which contrasts with the petalless sunflower heads in the center of the canvas, which are motionless. Tension rose between the two painters as Gauguin painted from his sketches from Martinique, and Vincent insisted that painting should be done from nature. A seemingly small point, but Vincent refused to let it go, and they argued. Now in version 4, Vincent has added 7 sunflower heads which have no petals. They are at an end stage of their life. They are inoffensive at first glance, but they represent death, and it is an odd message to insert into such a bright painting. However, they are prominent in the center of the painting, and they face the viewer. When we first look at the painting, we are struck by the cheery yellow and may not think about a hidden meaning. Likewise, Vincent heightens the drama in sunflowers by placing another sunflower on the left bottom, turning away from the viewer, in green, and seemingly petalless. There is one sunflower straight out of the little shop of horrors, right in the middle, looking out at the viewer. It has petals at the top, but none at the bottom. There's a similar front-facing flower in the same state of disrepair at the top left, and another at the middle left. All 3 are at the end stage of the 3-week bloom. There is another flower, but it is looking down, and there is one full sunflower at 3/4 face, but it looks forlorn. So what is going on here? How are we to read this? Firstly, I see a contrast between the color and the physical forms. There's an optimism of the yellow background. The painting shines with it, but the sunflowers are dead or dying. Why he did this can only be speculated on, but it seems to match his bipolar personality, experiencing the highest highs and the lowest lows. And the lows were about to get lower. Now, the overall effect of this painting is a contrast of optimism and gloom, roughly how Vincent's mind worked, and how Gauguin's time living with him went. Vincent's insistence on painting from nature culminated in explosive events which we will never be able to speak accurately of, but they end in a violent altercation, after which Gauguin leaves Arles and Vincent ends up confined in an institution with a bandage and rather less of one ear. But what does it all say? You can draw your own conclusions, but I see a juxtaposition of life and death. There's not only happiness and sadness, but ecstasy and doom. There's death in the heads with no petals, and manic confusion in the movement of the semi-petaled heads, which search in all directions. Gauguin was so impressed by the paintings that he called the painting in question a perfect page of an essential Vincent style. And before the conflict, Gauguin tried to get Vincent to trade them for one of his paintings, which was denied angrily. The importance of these works to Vincent, who wanted to be known as the painter of sunflowers, is clear as he reproduced the 3rd canvas once more and the 4th canvas twice more. There is certainly a quality about a masterpiece that is difficult to pin down, and perhaps in that lies some of its greatness. I think Vincent's genius here lies in the subtle use of form. There are no skulls and no bones, no sun and no smiling faces, and no portrait of the mad mind. If we look carefully at the individual sunflowers, there is a slight wretchedness, yet it is wrapped in such an optimistic, bright color that it's easy to miss. In breaking the conventional rules of painting, Vincent is not simply being rebellious. He's creating a disharmony on canvas that reflects the psychosis he struggled with all his life.